time for our top 5 segment, man. And oh my goodness, we teased a little bit of it last week, and man, it was as difficult as we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
This week it is top 5 greatest actors of all time, in our opinion. And man, oh man. So my approach to this list was the amount of films that I have seen from these people. So I felt like I couldn't do it justice to put a Marlon Brando on there. So not on my list. Snub, if for y'all out there. Marlon Brando was snubbed on my top 5 list. But I just haven't seen enough of his films other than, honestly, Godfather. I don't know if I've ever seen any other Marlon Brando film. And I know I need to deep dive into more of
Yeah.
his films. But and I mean there was a couple of others. Like I also didn't put Al Pacino on the list at all. And again, I haven't seen a lot of Al Pacino films. So I
So
know, I'm sorry.
no. So I kind of went not exactly that approach, but I knew you would be less likely to go old school, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to give you time because I think we at some point we should. So I kind of kept mine modern last 50 years, right?
Yeah.
Because I wanted to put a Buster Keaton, a Charlie Chaplin, a Orson Welles,
Right.
you know, a Marlon Brando. But I felt like, that would be drastic differences in what. So I said, let's go for me the past 50 years or so and try to blend a little bit older with a little bit more current. And like you said, ones that I've seen either all or majority of their films. And so that's where I've kind of went with it as well. But at one point, we are going to do Golden Age Hollywood actors to where you're going to you're going to have to give me a list, my man. You're going to have to give me a list.
I really am. That's for sure. Well, number 5 for me goes to Samuel L. Jackson. Motherfucker. Oh, this guy. I feel like, the amount of work and effort that he puts into his career that I feel like not a lot of people even realize is astonishing, to be honest, because I feel like what he does with the roles that he is given is take those roles, make them his own, and then also deliver something that no one thought that he would deliver. Because honestly, every time you see Samuel L. Jackson in a role, you're expecting some fun, you're expecting some action, you're expecting some witty dialogue, and it's all of that and so much more. And what he is able to deliver in the past decade, 3 decades, 4 decades that he's been around in the entertainment industry has been so freaking special, and he definitely deserves everything that he has coming to him. But I just, he's not in the conversation of one of the best actors of all time enough, so that's why I wanted to put him on the list. So number 5 for me, Samuel L. Jackson.
Well, agree with everything you just said. I mean, the guy is brilliant and should be on the list. I could preface my number 5 with that exact statement. He's not nearly in the conversation enough as one of the best actors, but anybody who listens to this podcast or follows me on social media knows he had to be on my list. My number 5 is John Bernthal. This man, I challenge you. Find a single thing that this man has done that you don't like. This guy absolutely kills it in every single performance that he has ever given, television or film. He steals the scenes of everything that he's in. But what I really enjoy is that he takes risks. Bernthal's a pretty scary looking guy, but he's actually one of the nicest human beings ever. And he does comedy. He's got some comedy stuff out there that if you guys haven't seen it, you should totally find it because he's as epic in comedy as he is scary and terrifying in drama and action. But I like that he takes risks. But the one thing that I really, really like about John Bernthal, why he's on my list and why I think he's such a phenomenal actor the way that he has no, let me say that again, no ego at all. This man will take a walk-on role, a supporting role, a lead role, guest star, doesn't matter. He goes for the roles that he likes, that he thinks he can do something with. It's not about for him leading man status or reputation, or it's, do I like the story? Can I get behind the character? Do I think I can add something to it? And when you approach your craft like that, you are always going to be great at it. And you just go back and you look at his filmography and you can see that. The stuff that he's been in, everything from lead to walk on and everything in between, and he's brilliant. My number 5, John Bernthal. Please, John, come on the show, please.
Please. I mean, such
oh my
a great
God. And his
pick.
podcast is awesome. If you guys haven't checked out his podcast, he's even a great podcast host. Like, fuck.
He is, yes. Check out the real ones, man. Check out the
Yes.
real ones. The one with Shia LaBeouf and the one with Pete Davidson. Some of my favorite conversations.
And Deborah Ann Wall. When
Yeah.
they dive deep into Dungeons and Dragons, his intent on trying to learn Dungeons and Dragons from Deborah Ann Wall, one of the most priceless things I have ever seen in my life.
Right. That's so great. Well, number 4 for me is my favorite actor of all time. So it's kind of crazy that he's not higher, but I had to, come to grips with the fact that there's a whole bunch of other people that deserve to be on the list.
Yes.
And I'm talking about Leonardo DiCaprio. Perfect timing, too, because we did just see the release of the trailer of his upcoming Paul Anderson film. Is that what it is? So I'm very excited about it because that film looks very interesting and very different, kind of like spy espionage / comedy, which I think is kind of fun. But this guy, he transforms every single time into the character that he is playing. And what he does is so special, and just the way that he approaches each role, he's like method mixed with not. Like, it's a very interesting procedure that he goes through, and I definitely feel like a lot of that comes from being birthed into the entertainment industry. This man has been in Hollywood since he was like teeny tiny, like 11 or 12, maybe even younger. So I just, everything that he does, I'm gonna go see and support. So yes, number 4 for me, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Excellent choice. Excellent choice. Got his start on Growing Pains.
Growing Pains.
Growing Pains. Right there with Brad Pitt. What? All right. My number 4, I'm just going to say this. My number 4 would maybe be my number 1 had we not lost him tragically. I will say that. My number 4 is Robin Williams. And I know that initially people think Robin Williams and you jump to comedy right away. Mrs. Doubtfire, Mork and Mindy, just whatever, right? And rightfully so. He was a brilliant comedian. And his comedic roles in Too Many Films to Count were always outstanding. I don't really think he had a miss. I mean, you look at Jumanji, you just look at the filmography, he didn't. But this man was a Juilliard trained actor and was phenomenal, and in my opinion, an even better dramatic actor than he was comedic actor. And you can look at so many, Dead Poets Society to Good Will Hunting to some of his creepy horror stuff that he did. He was brilliant on the dramatic side, the suspense side, and I don't think he got nearly enough credit for that. I mean, sure, Mork and Mindy was great, Mrs. Doubtfire, even Jumanji, but do you ever, other than Good Morning Vietnam, which obviously was quoted a lot, good morning, how often do you hear the comedic stuff quoted? But you hear all the time, Captain My Cat, from Dead Poets Society or Good Will Hunting, you hear lines from his dramatic stuff so far more often than, and he won his Oscar for dramatic roles. So think about that. I just don't think he was nearly in the conversation enough for his dramatic work. He was certainly recognized by his peers as a great actor, but I think he needed to be recognized more for his dramatic roles, as opposed to his. And don't get me wrong, I first saw him as Mork on Mork and Mindy and Happy Days because I'm old as shit. So I remember that. And I watched his whole career. But yeah, Robin Williams, my number 4, brilliant dramatic actor.
No, completely agree, man. Completely agree. It's still a tough one. Still a
It's
tough one.
so hard to think about that loss.
My third one is also a tough one because this is very recent, and I have like over the last 2 or 3 years, I've been getting super into his films, and oh my gosh, he is so good at what he does. I'm talking about Gene Hackman. Man, whew. Obviously, I'm from Indiana. Hoosiers is a big film
Yeah,
for
yeah.
me, and obviously he is the coach in Hoosiers. But I just recently watched like Mississippi Burning a couple years ago. You and I sat down and watched Unforgiven, and I was like, "This isn't even Clint Eastwood's movie; it's Gene Hackman's movie. What are we talking about?" But like, I just and like it's on my list to go back and watch The French Connection. I am so super excited to do that here soon. But everything that I've seen Gene Hackman in is phenomenal. It's top tier acting, top tier cinema. And I feel like, he's not the stereotypical, ooh, hot stud, good
Leading
looking
man
guy.
kind of guy, right? Right.
No, he is just a phenomenal freaking actor that brings like this aura. I can't even describe like the presence that he brings when he comes to his characters, but it's something special and it's something that not a lot of actors have. And so that's why it's always so hard now to talk about his work and his career and his passing. But yeah, number 3 for me, man, Gene Hackman. I'm super excited to go on the journey to continue to watch his
I
films.
mean, I've seen almost every one of his films, and I mean, come on, anybody who knows, I mean, he was one of the stars of my movie that made me want to be a filmmaker, the
True.
OG Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
It's probably the first time I saw him, and then followed his career, and then started going back and watching stuff pre Superman. And yeah, this man is absolutely one of the greatest actors of all time. Totally agree with you. My number 3 is number 3 could have been number 1, but I wanted, because I did try to keep some balance where there's a little bit older people that I've watched for longer than I have Denzel. So my number 3, Denzel Washington, but make no mistake, he could be at the top of the list if I wasn't trying to include a few older people. But obviously, I mean, Denzel Washington, hello, another one that takes risks with roles. He pulls off the comedic stuff. He pulls off the dramatic stuff. He pulls off the action stuff. He's believable in every single role. Whether he's playing, a Roman god, or whether he's playing a Civil War soldier, or whether he's a coach on the gridiron at high school. Everything the man steps into, you buy. And if that's not the sign of one of the greatest actors, I don't know what is. I mean, I have a handful of performances from him that are truly at the list of some of my all-time favorites. Obviously, Remember the Titans, Training Day, Fences. There's just so many. But yeah, I mean, my number 3, Denzel Washington. Duh.
Great pick, man. Great pick. It leads us to our second, both of our second. And I
Yes.
mean, this guy, is like, he's right there. He's right there. And he's an amazing, I think he's America's dad now. And we're talking about Tom Hanks. I think everything that he does is gold. He's the golden man of Hollywood. I feel like everybody loves Tom Hanks. There's never a bad thing to say about him.
No.
And I think everything that he's in is going to garner the much necessary attention. That's for sure. But one of the films that I haven't seen of his is the Da Vinci Code. I want to go back and watch the Da Vinci Code and then watch Angels and Demons or
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
the sequel to it. I'm very excited about that because I love like the Illuminati theories and things like that. So I definitely want to go back and watch those.
Well, yes, and this is another guy that I'm old, So I remember him way back
Yeah.
making guest appearances on Happy Days. And of course, what launched him to stardom was Bosom Buddies, which is amazing because it lasted like 2 seasons and barely
Yeah.
2 seasons, but it catapulted him into rocket fame. Um, Initially comedy. And yet, here's another guy. He's probably parallel with Robin Williams in the
Mm.
sense that he's a brilliant comedian, but in my opinion, more so dramatic actor.
Hmm.
This is a guy who can bring it on every level. Somewhat action star. I mean, he can get in a tussle here or there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say massive action star,
Uh-uh.
but he's been known to get in a tussle here or there. So you can't say he doesn't do some action stuff. But I mean, obviously, if you look at Splash and how Bachelor Party and The Money Pit and everything that he did with Meg Ryan, like the guy can bring comedy, but then you have to look at Castaway and all of these dramatic roles, Philadelphia
Philadelphia.
and
Oh,
Forrest Gump, which was a nice blend of both.
yeah.
I mean, the guy can bring it. I just one of those rare people that can do it all and does and takes risks. It takes a lot of guts, I think, to go from Philadelphia to a Forrest Gump, to Apollo 13, to jumping all these different types of I think what makes all of these people on our list great is their willingness to take risks.
Mm.
And Tom Hanks
Completely
does
agree.
that.
Yes, every time, man. Every freaking time. I love it. I love it. Well, number one for my list was on your list, and oh my goodness, I think he's the best actor of this generation and the generation before it, just because he is so damn good at everything he does, and he's such like a thespian. He loves his stage work. I mean, Othello just came out with him and Jake Gyllenhaal. I'm of course talking about Denzel Washington as well. Oh my gosh. I think what really nailed the nail into the coffin, hammered the nail into the coffin, was probably Philadelphia and Malcolm X. Those two films were so freaking outstanding
Yeah.
to where like it starts conversations, and that's what we want to do as filmmakers. They start conversations and they continue to make you think about the society we live in and how we can do what we can to better ourselves, to better society, to better the next generation. And I think a lot of his films that he is in, he does amazing work at trying to do that and to start conversations. But I also love the Training Days, the Two Guns with Mark
Without doubt.
Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Freaking, this guy is absolutely amazing, and I had to. So yeah, number one for me, Denzel Washington.
Well, hard to argue.
Of course.
Like I said, I had him on my list. And could have been number one. My number one, I think anybody that's my age or near my age would probably have this guy as their number one. And rightfully so. I've seen almost every single movie that this man has ever done. Going way back to Easy Rider. And taking it all the way through to, some of his last stuff with Adam Sandler and As Good as It Gets. And, he's been out of it for a little bit now. But I'm, of course, talking about Jack Nicholson. This is another man who you don't think, when you say Jack Nicholson, you don't think comedy. But if you look back over the years, he had quite a few comedic roles that were hilarious. The guy was actually really funny in a bunch of comedic films that he pulled off really well. But when you talk dramatic actor, you talk psychopath, some guy that can put chills down your spine and terrify you. Jack Nicholson is the guy. He's the guy you would cross the street and try to avoid when you're walking past him, right? You look at One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You look at Chinatown. You look at The Shining, Joker in Batman. Witches of Eastwick, where he literally plays Satan. There are so many things that where this man was absolutely terrifying, but just brilliant brilliant, dramatic actor. And again, I think what separates him, along with everybody else on both of our lists, is his willingness to take risks. Sometimes they work, sometimes they didn't. But these actors can all take those risks and recover from a miss. Some actors cannot. It kills their careers. All of these guys can take a risk, have a miss, and come right back. And I feel like every one of them on our list did. So, but I mean, it's hard to argue. Like I said, Jack Nicholson, if you look back over his filmography, you'd be hard pressed to find one that you don't like. Even the ones that weren't very good, you kind of like. I mean, it's like, I didn't want to like, I think it was called Wolf with Michelle Pfeiffer, where he plays like a but I kind of still watch it when it's on. It's because it's Jack, and it's like, okay. And of course you have your favorites, A Few Good Men. Like, I mean, Chinatown. Anytime there's certain ones that I see, I will stop and watch because they're that good. But yeah, my number one had to be Jack Nicholson. Man, I wish he'd just do one more. Just one more, Jack. Give me one more, Jack. Come on.
That's great freaking list, man. It's so difficult to try to narrow down all the amazing talent that is in Hollywood, and the up and coming talent as well. Maybe that'll be next week. Top 5 up and coming talents in Hollywood.
Up and coming or just young. Like, there was one that I really wanted to put on this list, but then I was like, Bernthal I'm talking about Ed Norton, who, holy shit. Yeah. Just watch Primal Fear. I mean, come on. I don't know. We'll have several acting lists because there's so many we could do.
For sure, man. For sure. Well, we want to know, who do you think is the best actor of all time? Please be sure to comment down below and let us know in the YouTube comment sections, X, Threads, Twitter, all the good things. Please be sure to do so.